You know what I'm saying? He did commit a crime. He is going to jail for committing a crime, but the time is going to be based on his pre-sentence report.
Former bodyguard Gene Deal is finally speaking up, and the timing has people shook. He stood close to Sean Diddy Combs during the peak of Bad Boy Records, and what he's been sharing lately has the internet buzzing non-stop. These stories aren't coming out of nowhere either. Gene has been saying the same things for years, calmly, clearly, and without switching up his tone. That kind of consistency is hard to ignore, especially now that eyes are locked on the situation. What makes this even wilder is that reports say some of Gene's past statements are being referenced by investigators today. Not rumors, not hype, just old interviews lining up with new developments.
We have breaking news that we're following in Sean Diddy Combs' racketeering and sex trafficking trial. In just moments, Combs' ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, is set to retake the stand and face what we expect to be her final round of questioning under cross-examination.
People who once brushed him off are now going back, rewatching clips, and realizing he never really changed his story. That's when the chatter got louder, and the pressure started building. Gene also suggested that officials may have been aware of troubling behavior for a long time, but didn't move until recently, which raised a lot of uncomfortable questions.
The ex-girlfriend of Sean Diddy Combs is back on the stand for a second day in the music mogul's criminal trial. Cassie Ventura shared shocking allegations of abuse during her testimony yesterday, and she also gave graphic details on the so-called freak-offs and then broke down in tears.
Again, that's his belief, not a claim, but it definitely made people stop and think. And just when you think it can't get heavier, Gene mentioned another former security worker who tried to speak publicly, only to suddenly disappear from the conversation right after. No details, no conclusions, just a moment that left people uneasy. Now, for anyone just tuning in, here's the quick rundown. In recent months, reports say Sean Diddy Combs faced serious legal trouble, with proceedings beginning in 2025. One of the most talked about moments came from testimony by Cassie Ventura, who spoke for several days about her past relationship and personal experiences. Her words added another intense layer to a story that keeps getting deeper by the day. She described these intense late-night party environments in serious detail, explaining how substances and pressure created situations she says she didn't feel free to walk away from. She said these gatherings had their own name and structure, and that she felt watched and controlled the entire time. According to her testimony, cameras were always present, which made the experience even more uncomfortable and overwhelming. The atmosphere she described left people in the room stunned, and observers noted how heavy the moment felt. Some jurors reportedly reacted with visible disbelief, shaking their heads as they listened. The descriptions weren't dramatic for attention. They were detailed, steady, and emotionally heavy. That's where Gene Deal comes into focus.
The monster side of Diddy that he should have been came out with this long time ago.
He's been speaking publicly for months on platforms like The Art of Dialogue, and every interview seems to add another layer to what people thought they understood. According to Gene, recording equipment was always close by wherever Sean Diddy Combs traveled. He said cameras, tapes, and devices were treated like standard luggage, not an afterthought. Gene explained that documenting everything was normal in that circle, which instantly explains why so many powerful figures might be nervous right now. Nobody wants private moments becoming public conversations. Gene also said the guest list wasn't limited to entertainers. In his words, there were people from all walks of influence, business leaders, international figures, and even well-known religious personalities.
Surveillance video of the hotel assault is the most important piece, but now we're seeing the prosecutors use some other pieces of evidence, selfies, text messages, emails, things that were on Cassie Ventura's phone because they want the jury to believe her unconditionally.
Again, those are Gene's statements, not accusations, but they definitely made people pause and reread the headlines. What gives Gene's voice extra weight is his position back then. He wasn't a background guard or temporary hire. He was a close-range bodyguard during the peak of Bad Boy Records in the late 1990s and early 2000s.
Tapes and everything that they seen, him beating the shit out of Cassie, people coming and saying he beat other people, did all kind of crazy shit to other people. So what they're gonna do is they're going to look at that and they're gonna give him a domestic violence court.
He witnessed major industry moments firsthand and has spoken about that era consistently across interviews, never switching up his story. That consistency is exactly why people are listening closer than ever right now. Gene Deal has shared more behind-the-scenes stories that made people seriously raise their eyebrows. He explained that during his time working security, there were moments when staff were asked to wait outside certain nightlife-related stores while purchases were handled privately. According to Gene, these stops were connected to preparations for exclusive gatherings that stayed far away from the public eye. He also claimed that certain wellness-style locations were visited regularly, spots that already had reputations for being discreet meeting places. Gene further stated that intermediaries were sometimes used to arrange private services, specifically to keep distance between the organizer and any paper trail. Again, these are Gene's words, not verified claims, but they added fuel to ongoing conversations about how carefully everything was managed. What stood out most, though, wasn't the locations or logistics. It was Gene's perspective on the music industry itself. He said Sean Diddy Combs wasn't born extreme, but shaped over time by the culture around him. Gene described a noticeable shift as careers expanded and environments changed. Early on, he compared Diddy to a fast-talking hustler type, but later said the attitude grew much larger, more aggressive, and more commanding. In Gene's view, that evolution didn't happen by accident. It was learned from powerful figures higher up the ladder. Things get even stranger when you realize Gene isn't the only former security member speaking publicly. Another man, known as Big Homie CC, real name Emmanuel Newton, shared his own concerns during an interview on Piers Morgan Uncensored in May 2025. His appearance instantly grabbed attention.
There's good people out in this world. There's still some good people in law enforcement. There's still some good people in the government that's going to make sure that he don't think he got that power.
Big Homie spoke about experiencing repeated, unexplained health scares over the years, situations that required medical attention and raised serious questions for him personally. He emphasized that he wasn't directly blaming anyone, but said the timing of these incidents felt unsettling given what he knew and what he had seen. That careful wording mattered, but it didn't stop viewers from connecting dots on their own. Taken together, these accounts don't prove anything, but they do explain why so many people are suddenly looking back at old interviews with fresh eyes. The pattern, the consistency, and the timing are what keep this conversation growing louder by the day. Big Homie CC also shared something that seriously stopped people in their tracks. He claimed that a crucial individual connected to the case, someone who was expected to support investigators with recorded material, suddenly vanished from the process before ever appearing in court. According to him, this raised serious concerns about how the case might unfold going forward. He even warned that as the proceedings continue, more unexpected removals could happen, especially involving people whose testimony might strengthen one side. That statement alone had social media buzzing nonstop. Now let's talk about what shook the courtroom itself.
There are several people who were initially named to be witnesses. They just magically disappeared because, News Nation had reached out to me to do an interview about this.
During testimony, Cassie Ventura became visibly emotional multiple times as she spoke about her past relationship. She described repeated moments where she felt physically overwhelmed and emotionally trapped, explaining that these situations happened far more often than anyone should ever experience. When asked how common this behavior was, she answered simply, saying it happened too frequently, and that answer hit hard. Jurors were then shown security footage from a 2016 incident at the Intercontinental Los Angeles downtown. The video reportedly showed a heated moment in a hallway that left the room silent. A former hotel security staff member, Eddie Garcia, later testified that he was offered a large sum of money to hand over the only copy of that footage so it would never surface. That claim alone sent shockwaves through the courtroom. Another powerful voice came from Dawn Richard, formerly of Danity Kane. She testified about witnessing a frightening confrontation years earlier, describing chaos, shouting, and behavior that left everyone frozen in fear. Dawn said she was terrified and unsure whether stepping in would put her in danger as well. Her testimony added yet another layer of tension and showed just how intimidating those moments felt to people nearby. All of this made one thing clear to observers. The emotional weight of this case isn't just about documents or footage. It's about lived experiences that are now finally being spoken out loud. And the courtroom could feel that intensity with every word. But hold up, there's even more information that barely anyone talks about. And this part left people completely stunned. Gene Deal shared a strange story about the hours leading up to Sean Diddy Combs' 1999 court decision related to a high-profile club case. According to Gene, while heading to court, the car made an unexpected stop in Central Park early in the day when hardly anyone was around. Gene said a man was already waiting there. When Diddy approached him, Gene described a moment that felt ritual-like, with smoke rising as the man began speaking prayers while holding a Bible. Gene believed the smoke came from burning sage, but that was his interpretation, not a confirmed detail. Things reportedly got even stranger when the man instructed Diddy to release a white bird from a cage. Gene claimed the moment felt symbolic and intense, something he never forgot. This all allegedly happened just hours before the court decision went in Diddy's favor. This story later appeared in a Hulu documentary connected to Shine, and while it sounds unbelievable, Gene insists he didn't make it up. He's repeated it consistently, which is why people still debate it to this day. Gene also spoke about pressure tactics he says were used behind the scenes at Bad Boy Records. He claimed that former company president Kirk Burroughs was pushed into signing over his ownership stake under intense circumstances. According to Gene, the message was clear even if the tools mentioned weren't life-threatening. Kirk eventually signed, believing it was temporary and tied to a larger business move. That promise, according to Gene, was never honored. Finally, Gene touched carefully on the passing of Kim Porter in 2018. Public reports listed her passing as related to illness, but Gene suggested there are unanswered questions that still bother people close to the situation. He stopped short of making accusations, but his tone made it clear he believes the full story has never been fully explained. None of this proves anything on its own. But when you stack these accounts together, it explains why so many people are revisiting old interviews and documentaries with fresh eyes and a lot more curiosity than before. Here's another angle that's barely getting any attention, and it adds even more pressure to the situation. Gene Deal has openly said that he's willing to speak under oath if he's ever asked to do so. In an interview on The Art of Dialogue, Gene made it clear that he's not hiding and not backing down. He specifically said he's ready to answer questions about Sean Diddy Combs' past, including his relationship with Kim Porter and other unresolved matters. Gene explained that he followed every proper step when issues came up, trying to handle things the right way instead of running straight to the spotlight. Despite that, he's been flooded with angry messages from people accusing him of betrayal. Gene didn't hesitate to respond to that criticism. He said he feels no guilt at all and stood firm in his position. He even referenced the famous song Money, Power, and Respect by the LOX, featuring DMX and Lil Kim, saying the message got flipped somewhere along the way. According to Gene, respect comes first, power follows, and money comes last, not the other way around. He said letting success rearrange that order is where things started going wrong. There's also an older story that keeps resurfacing online involving another former security member known as Uncle Ron, whose real name was Ron Smith. Uncle Ron once posted a video making explosive statements about industry figures and long-standing rumors. Shortly after that video went public, he was suddenly gone from the conversation entirely, which immediately set off endless speculation online. The circumstances around his passing were never clearly addressed in detail, and that lack of clarity is exactly why people still debate it today. It's become one of those unresolved industry mysteries that refuses to fade. Gene has also been asked directly whether he worries about personal consequences from speaking so openly. While he hasn't claimed any specific threats, the fact that he continues to do interviews and show up publicly suggests he's standing his ground without fear. Whether that's courage or confidence, one thing is clear. He's not backing away from what he's already said. Or maybe Gene Deal is just extremely confident that he's not standing alone in all of this. Back in May 2025, there was a tense moment outside a courthouse that quickly went viral online. Reports claimed Gene had a heated verbal confrontation with a YouTuber who repeatedly followed him, shouted disrespectful nicknames, and kept pushing for a reaction. According to witnesses, Gene warned him clearly to keep his distance and stop the disrespect. Things escalated verbally, drawing attention from people nearby. While online rumors exaggerated what happened, no arrests were made and no formal charges followed. Authorities reportedly just asked Gene to stay away from the courthouse for a short period to cool things down. That moment alone showed how intense the pressure has become around anyone speaking publicly about this situation. Now let's circle back to something Gene has questioned from the start, because this part matters a lot. In interviews on The Art of Dialogue, Gene openly asked why action took so long. In his words, if people knew wild stuff was happening back then, why wait until years later to step in? That question has echoed across social media ever since. Gene suggested that questionable behavior wasn't a secret behind closed doors, and that insiders may have been aware for a long time. Again, those are his opinions, not accusations, but they line up with what many people are now wondering out loud. Why now? Why not sooner? Similar concerns were shared by Big Homie Cece during an appearance on Piers Morgan Uncensored. He said that as major legal moments get closer, unexpected things start happening around key figures. According to him, people connected to the case sometimes fade out of the process under strange circumstances. Whether coincidence or timing, the pattern has people watching every move more closely than ever. And as the court dates approach, the tension only keeps climbing. With more eyes locked on who stays involved and who suddenly isn't anymore. So why did it take so long for anything to actually happen? According to Gene Deal and many observers, it all comes down to power and influence. For years, Sean Diddy Combs sat at the very top of the music world with business ties, industry allies, and access that most people could never imagine. Gene has repeatedly said that powerful figures from different worlds were present in Diddy's social circle, which made accountability feel almost impossible. When someone has that kind of reach, taking action becomes complicated fast. People hesitate, systems slow down, and uncomfortable issues get pushed aside. That dynamic, according to Gene, created a shield that lasted for years. But things finally started shifting when Cassie Ventura filed a civil lawsuit in November 2023. That single move changed the entire temperature of the conversation. Once that lawsuit became public, others felt encouraged to speak up too. Stories that were once whispered suddenly had daylight on them. Around the same time, previously unseen security footage from 2016 began circulating publicly, and that visual evidence played a huge role in changing public perception. After that, the situation could no longer be brushed aside or ignored. So where does everything stand now? As of this moment, the legal process is still moving forward, and new details continue to surface. Gene Deal has shared his personal belief that the ongoing pressure of court proceedings, long hours, and public scrutiny will eventually wear Diddy down. He's careful to say this is his opinion, not a fact, but he believes facing repeated testimony about past behavior can be overwhelming. Whether that prediction comes true or not, one thing is clear. The walls that once felt untouchable are no longer standing the way they used to, and every new court day keeps the spotlight burning brighter than ever. Gene Deal believes this situation may eventually push Sean Diddy Combs into trying to shut everything down by accepting some kind of legal agreement. In Gene's opinion, the pressure, the non-stop testimony, and the growing pile of evidence could become overwhelming. But here's the twist. Based on how serious the case is, even an agreement wouldn't magically make everything disappear. Other people connected to the situation could still face major consequences. And that's what has a lot of powerful figures quietly nervous. According to Gene, some influential people he's mentioned before might actually be hoping Diddy keeps quiet and takes the heat alone. The fear is that if he decides to cooperate fully and start talking openly, this case could stretch far beyond one person. If names start coming out, the fallout could hit corners of the industry nobody expected to see exposed. As for Gene Deal himself, his reputation has completely shifted. To many viewers, he's become a symbol of standing firm and not backing down. He's told the same stories for years, stayed consistent under pressure, and continued speaking even when it brought heat his way. Parts of his accounts now line up with testimony and evidence discussed in court, which is why more people are taking him seriously. Whether Gene will actually be called to speak formally remains unknown. But if that moment ever comes, people expect it to be intense, detailed, and impossible to ignore. His perspective comes from years of being close to the center of it all, and that's what makes his voice so powerful. Now I want to hear from you. What do you think about everything that's coming out right now? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you want to stay locked in on every new update, make sure you like, subscribe to ScarFame, share this video, and tap in with our other deep dives. We'll see you on the next one.